Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and
Matthew. How's it going, guys?
Matt's back for another edition of Welcome to the Wasteland. And I thought this would be a special episode to do specifically on the genre of horror. And the reason I say that is because this guy has been spending a lot of time trying to get me into horror movies. Because I didn't used to watch horror movies.
And now the balance is flipped. And now it's like, oh man, Autopsy of Jane Doe. What is that? That's
that is definitely one that I really like that came out in the past couple years. So basically how this is going to go, we're going to talk a little bit about where horror is today. 2020, 2019, 2018, where we think horror is going. And then we're going to talk about some of our favorite horror films and thinking about horror in general over the course of the over 100 years of horror films. Because I just recently watched Haxen, like the old German silent film horror film. Like, it was like witches throughout the ages or whatever. It's really creepy. But Matt here bought me a book, which is the history of horror films, and I really enjoyed this, which kind of sparked this. So I guess, Matt, what are your thoughts on horror?
Let me see. Okay, so horror can be seen in a couple of ways, right? So in terms of just pure entertainment, it can shock you and also it can shock you in different ways, right? So it can shock you in the sense where it's kind of like it plays on a certain kind of like deep fear, or it could shock you in the sense that as a film, it can show you something that you have never seen before, like on a screen, or it can have like some kind of crazy lasting impression where you're so afraid that you can't even go inside of the water anymore because you're afraid that a shark is going to eat you. Like there's yeah, exactly. Like there's like so many different things entertainment wise, and it's like, but then also in like a more heady kind of way, horror can be, it can be like a metaphor for something that maybe the public doesn't want to deal with, but it might have to be, or at least in the eyes of the writer or the directors, and like whoever like produces the like the cinematic effort, like they're trying to show you something. Like I forget what zombie movie. It's the one. It's not Day After. I think it's like the Day of the Dead. Whatever one has they're inside of
shopping mall.
Yeah, shopping mall, and it's
we're a bunch of consumer zombies.
Exactly. It's not just a bunch of like bullets and brains, but it's also like
there's some brains behind those bullets and brains.
Exactly. That made me queasy.
You're welcome. And like, look at Ari Aster. Hereditary, dealing with deep-seated issues of family and guilt and grief. And Midsommar, really thinking about abusive relationships, which also was reinforced in the most recent The Invisible Man, which I really enjoyed a lot. And
go watch it.
Toxic relationships being dealt with in an interesting and unique way, because I feel like horror today is very divisive, because you have the A24 horror film, which it's like everybody, every cinephile, every like hipster is gonna be like, yeah, A24 horror movies. And then you look at the audience ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, and every mainstream audience member is like, what the hell did I just watch? This is the worst thing I've ever watched.
The Witch.
The Witch, The Lighthouse. I love Robert Eggers and the work that he does, and I love his films. I'm a big fan of A24 horror films. I remember when It Comes at Night came out and pissed everybody off because they're like, nothing came at night. And then realizing I was like, Paranoia Came at Night. It's a deeper look at the human element of fear and panic, which honestly right now is very interesting because this whole coronavirus thing, and trying to talk people down because it's hysteria that causes most of the anxiety going on and the fear, and not the fact that like if you get coronavirus, most likely you're just not allowed near people for 2 weeks.
Wash your hands, people.
Yes.
And stop overstocking on toilet paper. What's wrong with you? Like,
here's the real horror. You're near somebody in the bathroom and they don't wash their hands after. That's just the scariest thing you're gonna find. But and it's I want to hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome for that, everyone watching. But because there's that A24 horror film, and it's like really cinephiles have been eating those films up, but most mainstream audiences are on a different frequency, different wavelength. And then you have Blumhouse, which it's like, let's bring back 70s and 80s like genre. Just like, they can be cheesy, they can be silly a little bit, but like they're the old school, just like B-movie type horror films, and that's what Blumhouse does. And I've started to notice if they say Blumhouse is blank, don't watch it. Truth or Dare, crap. Fantasy Island, crap. So as long as it doesn't say Blumhouses in the title, I think you're good. But like they're bringing back, like they had the
Candyman. Candyman.
That trailer
was trending on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah,
like
that
whoa.
was crazy. That trailer, and then you have like Jordan Peele working with Blumhouse. I just recently watched, because thank you Haley for recommendations, of Creep.
Yes.
And then I watched Creep 2, and I'm like, damn, Mark Duplass over here. Like, those are really impressive horror films. And you're always on the edge of your seat. And, like, Halloween's back through Blumhouse. And they really captured that kind of horror film. And, like, was Upgrade Blumhouse? I feel like it was. The Invisible Man, the most recent one, was Universal and Blumhouse. Universal and Blumhouse doing a lot of collaborations. But, like, we're in an interesting place in terms of horror, because you have all of them, and then, like, Orion Pictures came back with that Child's Play remake. I totally thought that would have been a Blumhouse thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they had some interesting ideas in it. It felt exactly how I expected it to be. Just crazy, over the top.
That was a ride. That was a ride.
Yes, it was.
It was the ending, but yes. Wow.
Do you want to play?
Yeah. This is for Tupac.
Oh my. But like, and then you have the garbage. Which comes out every January. The new Grudge. The Bye Man.
Yes.
Ooh. And you have other films that will occasionally pop up. Like, I'm super excited for Antlers.
Yes. Yeah.
Scott Cooper and Guillermo del Toro bringing a Wendigo to life. That trailer, those trailers are creepy as hell. And then you have Quiet Place. I've heard really good buzz about Quiet Place Part 2. But, like, this year, 2020, up until The Invisible Man, horror looked horrible this year. I did get to see Gretel and Hansel. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but, like, that's definitely not for everybody. It's
too
like...
bloody, or?
Too weird.
Oh.
And too slow. I think that's gonna cause a lot of issues for a lot of people. And there wasn't a whole lot of depth to the story. It worked all in atmosphere. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But
I wonder how mainstream atmosphere can be.
Definitely not that atmosphere. That is extremely... It was like a Wes Anderson horror movie. Everything was so symmetrical and weird. And it was interesting because I was rewatching Hereditary recently with my friend Haley, and she was like, I feel like I'm watching the horror movie Wes Anderson always wanted to make. And I'm like, okay, I can see that. But, like, Ari Aster's great, and I love how A24 and Blumhouse are giving these writer-directors the opportunity to really create something interesting. But then there's crap. There's a lot of crap. And they just keep dumping it out in January and February, and there'll be more crap later this year. And sometimes you could just tell, like... But there's other, besides just, like, Blumhouse, A24, you have certain directors. Like, Jordan Peele, I think, is made himself a must-see director when it comes to horror. Mike Flanagan. his adaptations of Gerald's Game, Doctor Sleep, love them. Ouija Origin of Evil
Which I haven't
shocked
seen.
the hell out of me because I really enjoyed that. And what turned me off was like the last 10 minutes where it really divulged into like a stereotypical horror movie climax. But besides that, Mike Flanagan uses deep focus better than anybody. There's scenes in The Haunting of Hill House, which, my God, that show, that terrified me. I remember I was watching it getting dressed one morning before work, and I'm just looking at this one scene in a funeral home, and it's just a conversation. You can see all the way back to the end of the funeral home. It's a big room, and all of a sudden I'm like, there's one too many bodies. There's like one too many people standing around there. I'm like, and honestly, that show has one of the most effective jump scares I've ever seen in a movie. In like a horror. Ever.
I think I know what you're talking about. Like the, from the ceiling?
No.
Okay, never mind. We'll talk after the video.
Yeah,
But,
like, there's one particular jump scare in Haunting a Hill House that scared the shit out of me. I'm just like... And then you have stuff like the Babadook.
I got this guy. That's one of
Duke.
Duke. That was one of your horror kind of like, okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try like this genre out like deeper and deeper and deeper.
I watched it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All the windows open. Midday, still curled up in a ball on the couch. And my roommate at the time made fun of me and laughed. Pat.
Well.
That movie messed me up. And then along with that, you have the Conjuring verse, which has been kind of revolutionizing horror because it's like this shared universe. And James Wan does some great work. And it used to be you knew you got quality from those movies. Now, like Curse of La Llorona and The Nun are just like ruining it. And like Annabelle, the first one's garbage. Annabelle Creation, I liked it quite a bit. Annabelle Comes Home, it was fun. It was a silly haunted house kind of thing. But like the first two Conjuring films, I can't remember how many times I've ever felt so much horror from watching something I knew was going to come. With The Nun, is walking around, her shadow walking around the wall, and I'm going to walk right behind that portrait of her, and it's going to come at you. Knew it was coming. Still scared the shit out of me. But that's how you do horror. And like the practical effects, so much of that's practical effects. The, whatchamacallit, what was the big, lanky, creepy...
Oh, I know you're talking about.
The one from The Conjuring,
like a Jangle Man or...
Something like that.
Yeah.
But that was practical. That was a tall-ass dude who could contort his body. I'm like, what? So, like, that kind of stuff. But I feel like horror is so hit or miss. And I feel like it's one of the most hit or miss genres. Because it's like... You can just lean on jump scares that don't turn out to be scary. And it feels like a waste. Because I feel like... Do you have anything to talk else to say about, like, horror film today?
Horror film today, I like where it's going. So you brought up like Ari Aster, and then like when I first saw Babadook, I had never seen a horror movie where I felt like it was 2/3 drama, and then the last third was just like terror. Like it's very interesting. Like
Hereditary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To be able to. If everyone is talking about the state of movies right now being kind of like starving for more original ideas, number one, they definitely are out there. And number two, it's not just like niche, tiny, small pictures that you have to like go out of your way to seek out. Like for whatever reason, there's a lot more attention and money being given to people that want to show like interesting stuff. Like, come on, Midsummer. Like, whoa, that is very different from like the horror movies that came out when we were in high school. You know what I mean?
Final Destination.
Yeah, like that's like extremely different.
Scream.
And how many of the Final Destinations were there? How many Screams were there? You know what I mean? There were like 5 or 6. I don't know. The state of horror movies today.
I feel like the slasher genre is not as big now as it used to be. Basically, it's just Halloween coming back. I feel like we're definitely more in the supernatural horror and atmospheric horror. Like The Lodge was pure atmospheric horror. And it worked pretty damn well. It's unnerving, it's creepy, and that kind of stuff is in it a lot. Like, the closest thing you're going to find to, like, the slasher horror genre really is just Blumhouse. Because they feel like they live in that nostalgia, like, area where it's, like, they get a lot of stuff from, like, the 70s to 80s influences and are kind of bringing that back. Because, like, was The Guest Blumhouse?
The Guest. I'm not sure.
Because that feels straight out of the 80s. And I loved it. I love The Guest.
That's because there was fantastic music. Fantastic music.
Well, and it's just like the new Ghostbusters movie. Like, the trailer plays up that it kind of legitimately feels like a bit of horror. Because, like, there was
watching that, by the way.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That trailer sells me hard. And, like, in a time where Stranger Things mixes horror and nostalgia, I feel like it's that time where a lot of nostalgia is coming, but there's also, like I said, I think it really depends on, like, the studio and who's bankrolling things. Because, like, A24 is for the auteur. Like, the auteur horror director. Or just directors in general, because they're releasing so many different kinds of things. And it's just like, Blumhouse is more for, like, which I would say Jordan Peele's an auteur director. But, like, it's not as overtly artsy.
It's accessible.
Yes, it's still accessible. Because, like, 99.9% of A24 films, like, The Witch, is so creepy. But it's in Old English, and, like, honestly, a lot of the things you're probably not going to understand what the hell they're saying. And, except for, live your life deliciously. And stuff, shit like that. But, like, stuff like that. And, like, watching The Lighthouse, farting, masturbating, old shanties, and, like,
having sex with a mermaid.
Yes.
Like,
and this isn't like Shape of Water.
Yeah. Like, there is no, like, beautiful French music. Like,
yeah. This isn't like a beautiful love story. No, this is like, what the hell's going on with Robert Pattinson?
With these characters?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, because, like, I'm interested to see where horror goes. I hope more and more focus is on the, like, the auteurs and, like, fresh nostalgia, and not just like, let's throw out a random horror movie with a bunch of jump scares because creepy. And so many horror films just get passed on because of a high concept.
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah. And also because they were dirt cheap.
Yeah, and that's another thing. So I like the fact that the first Paranormal Activity, like, that was scary. Like, it was scary, and whether or not people like it, it was effective in what it did. Just kind of like how, like, Blair Witch, not in terms of, like, it being found footage, it was just the fact that, like, for the amount of money that it took to make, like, it was effective in what it did, which is the reason why that movie got a sequel.
Who's ready for a hot take?
Say what?
Who's ready for a hot take?
I mean,
I hate Blair Witch Project. I watched that and I'm just like, this is not scary. Wow. I hope all of you get lost in the woods because you're all whiny and I hate you.
Rewatch the ending, and then I really hope all your commenters like Blair Witch Project.
They're so annoying. Like, I hate the characters. They're so annoying and whiny. I'm just like, I don't even care you're lost in the woods. You deserve to be lost in the woods at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I can understand why that was such a big thing when it was, because people legitimately thought it was like a snuff film.
Mm-hmm.
They thought it was real.
Mm-hmm.
And they marketed that like crazy. But, no, I just don't, like, I watch it, I'm just like...
And I wonder how many people went in to see Hereditary because they saw the trailer and probably a lot of people were talking about it and was like, okay, I'm going to be scared. And instead, they got, like, this thing about, like, family dysfunction and like grief processing and like, oh, by the way, like this isn't like a, like, you might think that it's a ghost story, but it's not that. I say I don't want to spoil anything. Can we spoil stuff? We're talking about horror movies of like now and today, but we're talking about stuff
like, this is my thoughts on Hereditary.
Yeah.
They spend 2/3 of the movie emotionally draining you
Mm-hmm.
to like the point where you have nothing left in the tank, and then they dump the horror on you, and you are not ready. Like, from an emotional standpoint, you're probably a mess at that point when that starts kicking up, and then you're just in the perfect position to get like your whole day messed up.
My entire theater, including me to an extent, I'm not gonna lie, like freaked out in that one scene where there's something happening on the ceiling that a character doesn't know is happening, and then
deep focus.
Yeah, like
yes, deep focus, so effective. And I just rewatched Hereditary with Haley when she was over, and like I know Haley, she was emotionally exhausted after the first like 2/3 of the movie, and then the movie just dumps that on you, and then it's just like, I'm not ready for this. I am actually exactly where the movie wants you to be. It's so well done on purpose, and it's so hard to process because it's like you're in this state where you're just like a mess. Emotionally, watching this family tearing itself apart, and then BAM! There it is, and it's just out of it built, well, it's not out of nowhere, it builds up so well.
They're like sprinkles of what you might think is going on, but then when you actually realize what's happening, it's like, oh, whoop, whoop.
It all comes to light.
Yeah.
In such an effective way. And, like, I hope there's more of that in the future of horror and less cash grabs. But the thing is, they're cash grabs. They can make their money back, so why not? They're going to do it. So, now, Matt, what are your favorite kinds of horror films?
Interesting. I think I like any horror movie that does something different. So I guess I like any movie that, like, kind of, like, surprises or shocks me. So kind of, I remember the first time I saw, so this is definitely not recent at all. 1980 was like 30, 40 years ago, but when I saw The Shining for the first time, and that movie played, like when you watch it, it's almost kind of like you're like watching a dream, because like the way the music is, it's like it's so odd and it's interesting, or kind of like the like there's like a lot of interesting things with that. Or okay, now I'm gonna zoom forward when I saw the movie Annihilation. That's probably a little bit more like sci-fi than horror, but there's definitely like horrific things that are in there.
Annihilation's terrifying.
Yeah, like there's one particular scene where I haven't been more scared in a movie theater. Like, I can't even think of a time where and I've seen like a lot of horror movies. Like, I don't know, but whatever. I'm trying to think what else. What movies have I seen that really pushed the envelope and showed me something that I had never seen before? But also interesting. What I don't want like baseless, needless, like gratuity and violence. If it's kind of just like whatever.
Eli Roth.
Yeah. So like Green Inferno and stuff like that. I'm not, or what is that? The Hostel series.
Yep.
Like I'm not gonna like. I'm gonna go. Yeah. Well, I actually liked the first Saw. I didn't like anything else. Because that
I
was
had
again
mixed
like
feelings,
a new.
but not gonna lie, I'm actually intrigued by Spiral.
I'm definitely gonna
Like
watch that.
that trailer got my attention. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, good for you, Chris Rock. You got my attention.
Because it looked different, right?
Yeah.
It didn't look like Saw
It
12.
was like
you know
a
what I mean?
surprise that it was a Saw related film,
Mm,
and that like turn is like okay, okay, because this had me, and now that I know that's this, now I'm still interested. But like to build off of you,
mm-hmm.
The Shining's my favorite horror film of all time.
Okay, okay. There's some weird
It's like
visuals in
the
that movie.
granddaddy of all atmospheric horror. Because that's what it is. It's all atmosphere. And honestly, that's my favorite genre of horror, is atmospheric horror. Which is probably why I love A24 horror films so much. Because it builds a sense of dread. It doesn't need the jump scares. But what it does have some shocking jump out moments. Literally. If you know what I mean in The Shining. Well, I'm pretty sure we could spoil The Shining. It's 40 years old. Like when Dick Halloran gets like axe murdered.
Or somebody's getting very interesting. A man in a bear costume is performing a service. Yeah.
Nice party. But like it's so, and like Jack Nicholson, which I know Stephen King hates that version of The Shining, but Stanley Kubrick didn't give a shit. Stanley Kubrick was like, I like this idea. I'm gonna do my own Stanley Kubrick thing, and he did. And Jack Nicholson embodied that. Every pore. Like every moment, just like, oh. And it's like, honey, you didn't let me finish. I don't want to hurt you. I just want to bash your brains in. And poor Shelley Duvall having to do that like 160 times because Stanley Kubrick was a sadist. Oh my god.
Whoever played her in Doctor Sleep, though, I liked how they did her voice. It was only a couple, like a minute, but I liked her impression. That was really good.
Like
they recreated a lot of stuff really well.
But like The Shining, and like a close second is The Thing.
Ah, so that's another movie. Because for me to be tired of a certain idea, the movie doesn't have to just be like a sequel of a sequel of a sequel. You know what I mean? Like there are very like obvious reasons why certain movies just don't make it. Like they litter. If you go on Netflix, there are so many horror movies that I would never ever click on ever. Because like you like look at the premise or you watch 15 or 20 minutes of it and it's like, what is this? And it's not because the production is like bad, because I mean you've seen Blair Witch, that probably took like $5 to make.
Yep.
It's not because like there's not enough gore or something like that. I think sometimes people like they maybe focus too much on like entrails and not so much on like understanding what's going on, like pacing wise or whatever. Like a movie like what you just said is. Well, why do you like it so much? Why do you like that?
Well, here's the thing. Because here's the thing about The Thing. I love every moment with those special effects. They're inventive, they're crazy, and the best part is, they're not even the scariest parts of the movie. It's that paranoia. And paranoia is so much more powerful than a jump scare. Just the constant dread, like that's why The Invisible Man works so well. That's just a paranoia fever dream, that whole entire movie, because you don't know when something's coming. And The Thing, which, here's a little fun insight into the film, is because Ennio Morricone did the score for The Thing. And usually John Carpenter does his own scores. And like basically Ennio Morricone just did the doom doom. Doom doom. Doom doom. Except there was one piece of music called Bestiality that was originally supposed to be in the film. Do 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 do, and just is like building, and Quentin Tarantino used it for The Hateful Eight. Because it felt so much like that claustrophobic in the winter and the snow kind of horror. Because like there's some scary, tense moments in The Hateful Eight, and you could feel those influences. But like the thing, that scene where they're doing the blood tests, you don't know who's who, and going all the way up until the very end. And come on, Kurt Russell's hair, like just look at it. It's majestic. That mane, though.
Oh,
but like, and there's even really like when the whole big monster that it's like, and he's like, "Wow, F you too," and I'm just like, yes. But like, I love the thing because it's so paranoia driven that it has you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
And what it also does is like, it plays on something that's really, it plays on something that's very like, very unconscious with most people, which is kind of like, if you're on a team, and then you think everyone is on the same page, and then what if one person or what if one thing is kind of like the detriment to everything that you're trying to do? Like, I think anybody in any certain situation or setting would be unsettled by that idea, like the fear of the other, or the fear of like the unknown, or the fear of being taken over, or the fear of being like tricked or something like that. That movie is really good. Like I've seen an X-Files episode that kind of did not a parody, but kind of did like their own version of that. I've seen a couple other shows or other movies that kind of like take that and do the same thing. Like I know the John Carpenter one is also like a remake itself.
Well, that's a great thing because we see so many horror remakes, but some horror remakes aren't great. The Thing took an idea and expanded upon it and did something unique with it.
There's not many horror movies set in the tundra. You know what I mean?
No.
Like I can't think of anyone besides that one actually. Well, maybe some bad ones actually.
The Shining has a lot of snow.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
See, the key for a movie to be my favorite horror movie has to be in the snow.
So you hate winter, like
like let the right one in. I knew that was gonna get his attention.
I'm just gonna time my clap. That's like a movie that like I kept saying, Shane, you should watch this movie. You should watch this movie.
Well, so I watched that. We met in film club in college.
2010.
Yeah, 2010, and we watched that. That and The Devil's Backbone.
Devil's Backbone.
You go, Guillermo.
Woo! He's been making movies for a long time.
Yeah.
Like a really long time. But even at that point, 2010, like that movie had been out for a while. Yeah, The Devil's Backbone, let the right one in. There's a lot of, I know there's probably like a lot of your viewers that don't just watch like American movies and watch like other ones. Like you just referenced like a German one. You said Asylum?
Yeah, Haxon. Yep.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of interesting art that's being like put out.
Like Nosferatu.
Yeah. What are that? And that's like the 30s, right? Something like that. That's like crazy.
Haxon was from like 1922 or something.
Okay,
something
wow.
like that.
Yeah.
And like I have an old art house cinema kind of DVD collection, and it has like the original Frankenstein from like 1911.
1911.
And it's like 10 minutes long, but like it's the first ever adaptation of that. And then you have Universal horror. Yeah, there it is. Look at that.
If you like Queen / you like Wolfman, Dracula, The Mummy, or Frankenstein, definitely go to Shirt Woot because there's a lot of cool websites.
Because it's so interesting because Universal was the jumpstart to the horror, like becoming a huge thing. With Dracula, like with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. And like all of that springboarded so many things. Claude Rains is the Invisible Man. And then Hammer Horror, which I actually started watching a lot more after I read that book.
Okay.
Which is British horror. And it's like really bloody like versions of Dracula with Christopher Lee as Dracula. Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. And like Frankenstein with Peter Cushing as Frankenstein and his creations, Christopher Lee. Basically, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing are in all of them.
Yeah, what is it?
And that was something fresh and bloody, because, like, these were not bloody and gory.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, a lot of people might watch them today and not think they're scary.
Mm-hmm.
They're terrifying to people then.
Mm-hmm.
And Hammer horror was, like, next leg up, just, like, bloodier and gorier and darker. And it's like you have things like Christopher Lee has such a great experience in, like, The Wicker Man, the original. How to get burned! How to get burned! My eyes! Ah! Oh, Nick Cage. Movie's atrocious. But, like, the original Wicker Man, so creepy, and Midsommar has so many, like, callbacks to, like, the original Wicker Man.
Mm.
And it's so interesting, and, like, Vincent Price. I watched the original House of Wax recently,
Mm-hmm.
and House on Haunted Hill, and she's like, Vincent Price. That voice. That mustache.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything's so perfect. Just like Thriller. And like that German expressionism, like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu and stuff like that. And it's just all leading up to, like, horror didn't explode until things like The Exorcist was like a humongous box office success. And rest in peace, Max von Sydow, who just passed away yesterday.
Oh, wow.
90 years old.
Wow.
I like how articles were like, Game of Thrones actor Max von Sydow. It's just like,
He's not new to this.
you shitting me? Why would you put that? He was the three-eyed raven for like 2 episodes. But like, The Exorcist, and like that movie's still terrifying. You have Rosemary's Baby.
Mm-hmm. Also currently on Netflix, by the way.
Is it? Watch it. This is really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And like that whole entire thing, like this is the end, where Jonah Hill gets raped by the devil, and then the exorcism of Jonah Hill. It's not really that compelling.
Yes, yes.
And like those kind of satires are on things that are so great, and like Poltergeist, and The Omen, little Damien, little shitbag.
Yeah.
And it's
really
so
pissed me off.
And then here's probably an area of horror that maybe a whole lot of you aren't really familiar with, but I really enjoy. It's a specific genre of Italian horror, made famous by Dario Argento, who made the original Suspiria, Big Red, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Opera, different stuff like that, and it's so bright and gory and messy and beautiful, and just like that original Suspiria movie is weird. The colors, the music, like the score's done by this band, like progressive like metal band called Goblin or something like that, and it's so creepy. And like Luca Guadagnino, who remade Suspiria, that's a creepy ass movie. Oh my god.
You really liked it, right?
I did, but like haunts your dreams. But like that, and like those Italian horror films are something I really enjoy a lot, and I don't think a whole lot of people know a whole lot about those films. But like, check out Dario Argento; he's pretty great. But it's like so many things with horror, and some of the best horror films are the things that really capture. Like George Romero's zombie movies have so much more in them than just zombies.
Yeah, there's a lot of different academic conversations you could have after watching that movie, whether it be kind of like race relation stuff.
Yup.
There's
shoot the black guy.
Yeah, like there's like there's like a lot of interesting conversations that you could have after watching that movie. Aside from the fact that is that a little kid eating like the flesh of somebody when you like go downstairs and see like the little girl. I had never seen like a child do something crazy and to watch it but know that it's a black and white movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa. So I remember when I was a little kid, my dad didn't want me to watch any horror movies at all because he thought he was going to freak me out. I don't know. I mean, yeah, could have. But I ended up watching, he ended up deciding to get me into, like, Alfred Hitchcock. If you're going to watch scary stuff, then you're going to watch, like, this stuff that's not going to be as violent. Or even if it is, it's not, at least not going to have, like, a lot of cursing. And then, so, like, The Birds. What's, like, another really good one?
I really, really love, like, one half of The Birds.
Explain. That's interesting. The second half?
Yes. Like, I'm not a huge, like...
You don't like the setup?
The setup never really grabbed me.
Okay.
And I really like the actors, like Tippi Hedren and Rod Taylor. Like, they're really charismatic. I just never got grabbed by their relationship.
Okay.
And then the birds show up and it gets a lot more interesting.
The
like,
phone booth scene.
That, the farmhouse.
Like having to leave it? Like leave it?
Or
we're talking about the...
Yup.
Yeah.
No eyes.
Yeah.
Eyes pecked out. Just like, what?
And then I think they tried to do something called like Bats or The Bats, like when we were in elementary school, where it's kind of like...
you got Birdemic.
Yeah, like stuff like that. It was like, yikes, exactly. Cinema send that to hell.
Well, back in the times of JonTron, before we...
What year was that even? What like era are we talking here?
What, Birdemic?
Yeah.
That was like the past like 10 years.
Yeah, wow.
Greatest horror film of all time, The Room. Terrifying how horrible it is.
So many twists. So many unanswered questions.
Oh my god. So many questions of why I ever sat through that whole 2-hour movie.
Multiple times.
No, I've only sat through that movie from start to finish.
Oh, you only saw one.
Once, and is enough.
And I love how Disaster Artist wasn't like nominated for an Oscar or something like that, or they wanted it to be, or I remember getting like a lot of buzz.
How old are you? It's like, I'm your son's age. It's like, you're 18. Yeah. It's like, oh, and I just turned 15 last week. It's like, happy birthday.
There we go. Yes.
They're going off on too much of a tangent, and it's like, one genre of horror that really hasn't grabbed my attention that strongly is slasher films.
Why? Is it because there's so many, but they all seem to kind of like they all seem kind of same-ish?
Like,
or is it because that's this
I really enjoy the original Halloween.
Okay.
I really enjoy the first Friday the 13th.
Okay.
But also that's a little more supernatural horror too, because Freddy Krueger. I love Scream. But like, I just feel like it's so overdone. And
at the time Scream came out, it was overdone.
Which is why they like satirically Wes Craven kind of sent it up. But like, I liked what they did with like the reboot of Halloween. Like, it's pretty funny, honestly. But like, great camera work, inspired filmmaking, and it's brutal. And I cheered a little bit during that movie. One particular callback to the original really got me.
Oh, towards the end?
Yep. But it's like, I don't know, the slasher film never has been something that's really grabbed me. And then you have like creature features, like Godzilla. And...
The Blob. I actually saw that movie.
I have too. Yeah. With Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
The Blob.
It's like chewing gum or something. Yeah. It was odd.
But, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The pot. Yes.
That was really good.
Which I love. The World's End. I just love how much Edgar Wright
okay, gotcha.
Like, lampoon a genre, but do it so much justice and make a great film in that genre. Like, obviously, The World's End is supposed to be more sci-fi, but it still has those horror elements of, like, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
And that's a personal thing for you, too, because you and Robot, you're like, that is not
No dice. Terminator, Skynet, most terrifying thing ever in a movie.
Why are we marching towards it?
Because people are dumb. And then like Shaun of the Dead. Such a great zombie movie, and it's so funny.
It was, and it's also a great comedy on its own. It's a great zombie movie on its own. Like, there's a lot of interesting, cool things that I had never seen in a movie. Or at least I don't think I have. Have I ever seen a movie that was that funny, but also that bloody? Well, there was The Reanimator, so that's an '80s movie, and I remember I had never laughed, and also felt like I wanted to throw up at the exact same time too.
Like Scanners and like The Fly, they have those like.
Be very afraid. Be very afraid. Yeah. The Fly.
Yes. The Goldblum. Yes. Yes. And
it's very hard to do that, but then make sure it doesn't sound like Woody Allen, right?
I don't know why everybody's like so upset about what I've done.
It's my book. But yeah.
Want to help develop my app?
Yeah, exactly. LOL.
It's like there's so many different kinds of horror films too, and I feel like that's something that makes horror fresh and interesting, because it's like science fiction has different kinds of science fiction. You have like sci-fi fantasy, like Star Wars. There's probably a lot more fantasy in Star Wars than actual science fiction. You have dystopian. I have Mad Max right behind me. So, but like horror, it's like you have those atmospheric horror films. You have supernatural horror films, which honestly, those get me more than anything, because it's like, ghosts are scary. Conjuring, evil spirit shit like that. Yep, got me. But like the best ones, like Jaws. You only care so much is because you care about all three of those main characters.
Yeah, there's some really awesome characters, like their dialogue and the characterization, like through the actors. Like, there's some pretty awesome stuff that has to go in to that movie to make it so great. Aside from the fact that, like, everybody's afraid to go inside of the water. Like, that monologue about, like, the
USS Indianapolis.
Like, that monologue, everybody.
There's many men went into the water.
Yeah.
There's many come out.
Like, that's, like, damn effective.
Robert Shaw, so great. Roy Scheider, so great. Richard Dreyfuss, so great. And, like, The Exorcist, you care because you really feel that relationship between Reagan and her mom.
And if you were anybody that was around in the 70s watching it in theaters, like, I remember, I think, this like random, I think maybe my dad, and I asked him, so, like, what did you think when you saw, like, The Exorcist? And he said, I had never, cause that was, like, his first rated R movie, something like that, and he had never seen, like, or heard some things said and done in that movie until he actually saw that movie. Like that vomit stuff, or saying, like, I'm gonna take your soul, you blah bleep 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 bleep, like
Your mother sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Like, I'm imagining people in the 70s be like, whoa, what the hell? Also, let's double feature that. I'm like,
oh.
Take my money.
And then you have stuff like Evil Dead.
Whoa, yeah. Or the remake, which is probably even crazier.
I've never seen the remake.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can handle the remake.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe keep it just like the Babadook. Watch it in the middle of the day.
I'm gonna keep with Ash vs. Evil Dead. Bow to the king, baby.
There we go. Like, what is it? A hand for a chainsaw for a hand. Right?
Yep. It's like, you thought me beautiful once. Well, baby, you got real ugly. Bruce Campbell. And like stuff like Bubba Hotep, which has some weird, like, it's about a retirement home where Elvis Presley's still alive in retirement, played by Bruce Campbell.
I've never heard of that.
Whose best friend, played by Ozzie Davis, who thinks he's JFK.
Okay.
And they're this this nursing home is haunted by a mummy who sucks the life out of all the old people.
Okay. Is this a show?
It's a movie.
Bubba Hotep?
Bubba Hotep.
Okay.
Bruce Campbell is Elvis. Perfect.
You heard it here first, guys.
Go watch Bubba Hotep.
LOL.
It was like the early 90s, I think it was.
Okay.
So here's an interesting. Who of any director would you want to see direct a horror film?
Ooh, very interesting. What is that thing where, inside of, what was it, Halloween, where there's a certain kind of character, female character, I can't remember what it's called, but it would be very interesting to see if Greta Gerwig would be able to make a movie that had a female protagonist be as strong as all of her female protagonists, but then also set them in like some kind of maybe not complete horror, because that sounds like maybe too much of a stretch of what I conceive of her being creating, but maybe something like really surreal and odd. So maybe kind of like a dreamish kind of thing, like The Shining or something like that. I don't know. That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Also, I forgot one other horror film recently.
What?
Bone Tomahawk.
I was like in Walmart and I was
S.
like...
Craig Zahler.
The Shane movie?
It is, because the thing is, I love S. Craig Zahler and like Bone Tomahawk, Brawl in Cell Block 99, Dragged Across Concrete. It's like, I dig his movies. Like, I vibe very well with his films, but like...
Dragged Across Concrete.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson play dirty cops.
No, I'm just saying that's a wild title.
They're very pulpy. That's the word that I was trying to think of about Blumhouse. They're pulpy horror films. If you know what I mean. It's like there's a lot of character to it.
Like over the top though.
Yeah, kind of thing. And his S. Craig Zahler's films have a lot of pulp to them. They feel very exploitation era, kind of like 70s kinds of films. But who would I want to direct a horror film?
I think it's called The Last Girl. I think that's what it's called. It doesn't matter. But yeah, who would you want?
Would be cool. I wonder what Christopher Nolan would do with a horror film.
That cinematography would be like delicious.
Either him or George Miller.
Ooh.
Because like Mad Max feels like a fever dream. Can you imagine if that's like a horror fever dream?
That would be.
Well,
I don't know if I would be able to take it.
Saw was directly influenced by Mad Max.
Really?
Do you remember the end of Mad Max?
The first one, right?
Where he shackles the guy to the car and gives him a hacksaw and says you could cut through these shackles in 20 minutes. You could cut through your ankle.
At 5 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
something like that. Yeah, that influenced Saw because the guys who made Saw are Australian. But like, that I think would be intense.
Who are you two again? You said George
Nolan
Miller.
and George Miller. Because like I would be interested to see what Wes Anderson would do in a horror film. Because like if you've seen Grand Budapest, that one sequence where Kovacs,
Willem Dafoe,
played by Goldblum, is getting chased by Willem Dafoe. That was very like thrillery, horror-y, and I'm like, that's one of the things I love about Grand Budapest. Is that it hits so many different kinds of things. There's scenes like that where I'm just like, I never expected to feel something like this in a Wes Anderson movie.
And 20 minutes ago, I was like, oh, this is a sweet romance.
Get your hand off my lobby boy!
There we go.
I go to sleep with all of my friends.
There we go. I like that.
Gustav Age. But like...
And Saoirse Ronan too, right?
I love me some Saoirse Ronan. But like, so that would be interesting. Greta Gerwig doing a horror film would be interesting.
That would be really... I guess the only reason I'm thinking about it is because I read a random article about that particular thing. That,
like The Last Girl.
Yeah, like The Last Girl, but her being... But it being in like a 2020, like a new age way.
Like The Invisible Woman.
Exactly.
Like the Invisible Man.
Exactly.
That felt very much like that remake.
Like an
what I loved
empowerment
about
kind of
it
thing.
was it was so of today, but still honored the original source material.
I mean, I could only imagine what some certain people might have taken away from that, but what I imagined other people taking away from that, it was like the ending shot when she kind of goes, like that relief.
Yep.
Of like being like to end on top and everything like that.
She
and
broke free.
Like that. There's something awesome about that, and that's something very like of the time, and it'll be interesting to see. And I don't even know if I want like Greta Gerwig to do some kind of like a remake, but then put like a female like spin or twist on it, because like, well, I guess anybody could do that. I mean, like a dude directed Annihilation, so like, but what I'm saying is that it might be kind of interesting just to see like her do stuff, because look, probably like, I don't know, like 10 years ago, what was Peele doing? He was still on Mad TV, right? And it's like, oh wait, he can write.
If you watch Key and Peele, you could definitely tell he had a horror streak in him.
Well, it came out.
Yep.
It came out.
Came out for sure. Somebody watched The Twilight Zone. A lot.
I still need to watch that show, by the way.
Like, I would be sitting there with my girlfriend watching it, and Jess just knew how excited I would get every time. I'm just like, this man is going deeper and deeper into this dark, dark place. And where he's going to cross through? The Twilight Zone. And it's like the... I'm like, yes! Every time I heard the words, The Twilight Zone, out of Jordan Peele's mouth, I just got irrationally excited.
I went to the first episode, and I really liked it.
Was the Camille Nanjiani, the comedian?
How were like the rest of the episodes? Did you watch any more of them?
Oh, I watched the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, how was it?
The last episode was weird and meta as crazy, because like Jordan Peele played himself in the episode.
Wait, like Jordan played Jordan?
Yeah.
Interesting. How did that like? Well,
I don't want to spoil. Like, if you ever get a chance to watch the whole thing, that last episode is so weird and interesting and intriguing. I loved it. But like the Adam Scott episode, I really enjoyed on like the airplane. There's basically one about a young kid becoming president, played by Jacob Tremblay, and it's totally supposed to be shots at President Trump. You can just tell, like a giant child.
LOL.
It was like, oh, you can tell that's what they're going for with that. And
how are the quality of the episodes? Like, I like these premises. What about the quality of the episodes? Do they...
Some are better than others.
Okay.
You can tell. And it's just not like, they're not like amazing episodes, but they're very pulpy and interesting and fun.
So I really liked the first episode. I just never got around back to it.
That was definitely one of the best ones. Seth Rogen was in one of them.
Seth Rogen?
Yep.
So that's where you've been, Seth.
Well, he did Long Shot.
Say what?
With Charlize Theron last year.
Oh yeah, he did do that. I did like that too.
I laughed way more than I thought I was gonna laugh in that movie. Especially when it opens up with him like trying to infiltrate a skinhead organization.
And yeah,
and the Jews won.
But then he like then gets half a swastika on him on his shoulder. Yeah. Which is a weird sentence.
Yes. But anything else, Matt?
I don't know. I mean, I'm excited for where like horror has gone. I think there's a lot of material out there for if someone wants to get into horror. There's a lot of stuff that people can do to go backwards, either in like American like cinematic efforts, or trying out the like other countries, like what they have kind of like put out, like classically. Or like, I don't know, like more recently, I think there's like a lot of cool stuff out there, and I think that horror it's not just about blood. Especially if a horror, I'm gonna say for me, I'm gonna call it done right for me. If your horror movie can like play on a couple other things besides just like surfacey stuff, then whether or not like it's extremely apparent what you're trying to do, like Get Out Get Out, it's like it's definitely apparent that they're talking about like race relations stuff. But like when you watch like the Romero classic, like you might not immediately think about like that same thing. You know what I mean? So you don't always have. It doesn't have to be like heady on the face of it, but as long as it's playing on something that's creepy or interesting or different, like The Thing, like if it's showing something, if it's showing you something
Like
turning it on its head, that's dope as hell.
like the 50s, The Thing from a Different World was very like Cold War era paranoia. Make me care. If I care about the characters, I will care more about if something happens to them. Like the Warrens. I love the Warrens in the Conjuring movies. They're such a wonderful couple. And like even from like the little moments in The Conjuring 2 when Patrick Wilson plays Elvis songs and on the guitar and just enjoying those character driven moments, it's like that makes me care so much more.
And come back for the sequels.
Yeah, exactly.
Which aren't always crap.
I'm looking forward to the next actual Conjuring film because it's about the Warrens again.
This year or next year?
This year. It's like Annabelle Comes Home, the trailer came out 2 months before the movie came out. Came out of nowhere last year. But be interesting to see where horror goes. This was fun chatting. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
But we're hoping to do one of these Welcome to the Wasteland shows once a month, so keep tuning in and we'll come up with different ideas. If you have some ideas, comment below and let us know. And we're going to talk some movies. But thank